Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to Our Issues Birmingham. I'm delighted to have a very old friend and a good friend and a former adversary, actually.
Yeah, a couple of times.
Your last case was tried against me, Doug Jones, former U.S. Senator for the great state of Alabama. Welcome to the show.
Tom, it's great to be with you again.
Wish we had you back in D.C. I called Doug after I'd heard something, and I know I'm going to offend some people when I say what I'm about to say, but he said hello, and I said, save us. I'm worried about our democracy, but and when I say democracy, I'm not picking on any specific person. I'm talking about the Declaration of Independence and the words that were put in there.
I understand.
And I even went back and reread it, and it was just astonished at how little things have changed since 1776.
You know, Tom, there's one piece of that I quote very often, and it's probably the most important thing for folks to remember. The Declaration started out saying, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Founders saw the importance of truth. And that's something we're not seeing as much of these days. And I wish people would seek more truth than political,
And more TV.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are you doing these days?
You know, it's interesting. I left. I've been over the last 4 years with a big law firm in Washington, D.C., based out of Birmingham, but recently left there to get a little bit more freedom to do some things, put some stuff together. So I'm kind of back to my roots of just Doug Jones Law. LLC here, based here in Birmingham. Birmingham's been our home. I've worked out of the house or a little office for the last 4 years, but now I'm going to put together some big projects, legal projects, trying to work with some lawyers in Alabama and around the country, doing some things for just to try to help some folks.
But are they mostly politically involved in engaging in things that you maybe take a position that's different than the current administration has taken?
Yeah, there's none of those just yet, but we are talking to lawyers about some pro bono work that we'll get engaged in on civil rights and different things because of what's going on in the country. But mainly it's more of a plaintiff practice, doing some mass tort, antitrust, some things like that I'll be working together with a lot of other lawyers around the country. And I'm still engaged a lot, folks from one end of the country to the other, and a lot here in Alabama.
In the Democratic Party.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Still staying engaged. Talk to former colleagues off and on. I don't have it yet, but we still maintain a little apartment in D.C. and probably have an office back up there in a month or two.
Well, you just used these words about things that are going on up there. So that's the hook that I developed this next question for. What is going on up there?
You know, I tell you, it's a different world, and it changes daily. You know, I just got back from a fishing trip. When I left, DC was all calm, and now it's like it's a armed encampment up there now for no reason, for absolutely no reason. When you go up there, people are tense. Even folks within the caucuses, it's just a different atmosphere when you walk
Explain
through
what
the
that means within the caucus.
You've got a Republican Senate caucus, and that's what I'm used to, is the Senate side of the House. You know, the Republican caucus, or the Republican senators, they get together for lunch, they plot, they strategize, and the Democrats do the same thing. But even within those caucuses, there's a lot of tension among the members, and it's just a different atmosphere than I think that people have witnessed. It's not as fun. It's not as collegial. It is just, everybody is very tense. Everybody, I talked to a friend of mine yesterday that had been covering a conference in Massachusetts. And you had a Republican senator supposed to be there and a Democratic senator. And they both said, no, we can't be seen together at the same time at a conference like this. And they had to do them separately. That's not the way it was when I was there. And it's certainly not the way it's supposed to be or should have been. But it's just a different atmosphere.
Well, is that tension based in an underlying fear of retaliation?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. It's based in large measure, quite frankly, on the Republican side, of some retaliation because they don't want to be seen as working with Democrats at all. Democrats, I think, have just moved to a point where they have recognized that they can't reach across the aisle. They can't do some things. And so you've got this standoff. You've got the Republicans doing what they want to do, the Democrats trying to challenge it, and nobody is trying to find that common ground that I had seen when I was in the Senate as much.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago.
And it wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was, I left in 21, January of 21.
4 years.
Yeah, and it's just different, and you don't see it. Not that it doesn't happen. You still see conversations, and there are things that happen. But the big legislation, if you look back over the last 6 months, the legislation has been either nominations or bills that went through under reconciliation that did not require any kind of cooperation, just a majority. And all the negotiations and discussions are taking place within the majority and not even including the minority and the Democrats at all. That's just not the way the Senate was designed.
So we're essentially a one-party country.
Well, we are for the time being. I mean, I know a lot of folks are frustrated with Democrats that they're not doing enough. But there's very little the minority can do, especially in the House of Representatives. But the way that the majority is running in the Senate right now, the Republicans are running, they're not doing anything that requires 60 votes. Everything is by reconciliation or nominations, which are just majority votes. So the minority, the Democrats, are completely isolated. And that, again, it's not the way it was when I was there. I had 26 bills that I was a lead sponsor on with a Republican that got introduced, passed in one form or another, and signed into law by President Trump. You don't see that kind of legislation coming around anymore.
Hold that thought. We're going to take a short break. This is Our Issues Birmingham. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. I'm speaking with Doug Jones about the state of, what is that song? The condition our condition is in.
That's right. That's right.
So because I'm a criminal defense lawyer, I work in a business that deals with the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice, from my perspective, is undergoing some odd
it's a transformation, Tommy. It's a transformation. I mean, it's a major transformation. Going back to post-Watergate.
From what to what?
Well, going back to post-Watergate reforms. Remember, we had an attorney general.
A good word.
We had
it's
an
attorney word.
Attorney General of the United States that went to prison back in the 1970s.
John Mitchell.
And after that, certain reforms were instituted to give the Department of Justice a level of independence. The department always has some politics involved in it. It's the Attorney General is appointed by the president, but it has always had a level of independence on enforcing the law, especially criminal laws, who to prosecute, who to investigate, following the evidence, not following the directive. I don't like this person. I want them investigated. We've never been given quotas and things like that you're seeing right now, the way the department is going after. Most importantly, you've never seen the department lose career people like they're losing right now, who just are not being able to follow orders which they find questionable against the law or ethical, one of the two. And so people are getting either fired or people are having to leave office. And so that's a concern. I want to say, though, that I do believe that throughout the country, there are men and women, assistant U.S. attorneys and prosecutors and civil lawyers in those offices throughout the country that are there to do the right thing, that are there to uphold the Constitution, the rule of law, and hopefully they will stay strong and we will continue to have people in there. Most of what I'm concerned about is coming from the top, where the folks in the Department of Justice appear anyway to be more taking orders and appear to be the president's personal lawyers and doing the president's bidding versus more of representing the people of the United States.
Well, it gets into the balance of power.
It
And
absolutely
it's a
does.
crossover where the executive branch is getting into the judicial branch's business,
Well,
so to speak.
yes, and not only the judicial branch and threatening judges and saying the things that they say, and now you've got Congress that is just kind of taking a knee to most things that the administration wants. And I think people need to look and go back to their civics lessons and read about the checks and balances the Constitution of the United States is one of the most brilliant documents ever devised. And it was devised not only for the moment of where they were in the 1700s, but for the future and how we can do and the things that they were concerned about and protecting against autocracy or a monarchy. And those checks and balances are getting eaten away right now because people consider they want their jobs apparently more than they want their integrity sometimes. And that's disturbing. The other thing that I think people are missing a little bit of right now is how much the president is trying to put his thumb on the scale in private business, telling different folks, you will pay an extra tax if you want to do business in China, for instance. He just did that with NVIDIA and a couple of other folks. When the steel companies merged and the administration approved the steel merger between U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel in Japan, he required that they be given a golden seat on the board. The government of the United States has some level of control. That's socialism. I don't know why people
Which
aren't
is
up in
the
arms here.
fear
Which is the fear of the right, the
the
more conservative folks in the country.
well, no, it's the fear of people like me, the Bernie Sanders people, or who are perceived as socialist
Right.
type people. What you're telling me, what I just heard you say is what's happening is in fact socialism.
Absolutely, where the government is reaching into businesses, and they're doing it more and more. They're
But it's
trying.
not affecting the individual.
Not yet, but it could and it will. The whole thing with the tariffs has been so chaotic. That hasn't filtered down to people yet, but it's going to. It is a tax on you and me. Every time we go and buy a washer or dryer or something that's going to be a little bit higher cost, that extra money is going to the government, which is fine. We're going to make some money off of it, but it's tax money. It's a tax on folks. This
A
is
tax on the people that can least afford to
least
pay it.
afford it. That's exactly right. That's the concern that I've got about what's going on, and the bigger concern is exactly where we started this conversation, and that is there is virtually no pushback from the Congress of the United States because of the majorities in the House and the Senate are basically letting the executive branch be the what do they call it, the single unitary executive is what they call that, with so much power. And
Monarch.
now, and now you've got there's a lot of judicial opinions around the country that are pushing back, but once it gets to the Supreme Court, which is another whole issue, we can talk
That
about
is
that.
the most shocking thing to me. But
Absolutely.
we can talk about that.
And the emergency docket, that shadow docket, they're winning all of those, and it is creating a powerful executive that I don't think that the founders of this country, if you read any of our history, warned against.
Is it reversible?
I think it's reversible. I do think it's reversible. It's going to take some time, and sooner or later we're going to need some profiles and courage in Washington D.C. to say no. I have a duty. I have a constitutional obligation that people elected me to do, and it is not simply to be a rubber stamp. It is to work with you, to work with things, but also be the check.
Yeah. I hope they step up to the plate.
I do too.
Because the ball's coming at you real fast. We're going to take a short break. This is Our Issues Birmingham. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. I am just having a blast up here. I don't know about you. Talking to Doug about, we've been through so many things together. It's just amazing to hear after almost 50 years,
Yeah.
we're having conversations that involve such important matters
Right.
that you're right there in the midst of. But the Supreme Court of the United States currently, to me, is a little bit partisan, not more than a little bit, and they're not bashful about it. It seems flagrant
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
Now, every now and then, you'll see some movement from somebody you didn't expect to see movement
Right.
from. Do
Yeah.
you agree with
Yeah,
what I'm
no,
saying?
I absolutely agree.
that's exactly what we're not supposed to have.
No, I think you are seeing more than in my lifetime. And remember, when we were growing up, this is criticism of the Supreme Court's not unusual. Remember, when we were growing up, there were billboards saying impeach Earl Warren because of his segregation, blocking segregation and his civil rights stands. And the court was a pretty liberal court with the rights that they
was
were
back
protecting.
when most of the Bill of Rights was
were
being
respected.
Yeah,
Were
or
respected.
at least
and upheld.
acknowledged.
Acknowledged. That's a good way to put it as well. But today, we do seem to see more members of the court who have a partisan political agenda than a judicial philosophy. And they will do some mental gymnastics to get to a point. It's like, this is the outcome that I want to achieve. What can I say and do to get there? And that's not the way you're supposed to interpret a case. Everybody knows that.
Well, it sort of shoots a hole in the whole concept of precedent.
And independent judiciary. The thing that has troubled me the most over the last few years is the use of what they call the shadow docket. And that is what this administration has been using more and more.
Explain that to the viewer.
It used to be called an emergency docket. The best example is when there is a death row inmate in Alabama and file some last minute appeal, and you appeal to the emergency docket of the court just to get a stay until the court can review the merits of the case. That's traditionally what it's been used for. Now it is used for just almost anything, or at least by this administration, because this administration is getting challenged in court so many times around the country. They're immediately going to the Supreme Court when they lose and say,
they bypass the circuit court level?
No, they will go to the circuit court, but they can take these things really very quickly and go immediately to the Supreme Court as soon as they get some type of opinion.
Well, who's the gatekeeper?
But
Is there a clerk of the court somewhere that says?
Yes, but remember this. We're not talking about the merits of the cases. We're talking about injunctions, preliminary injunctions that are issued
district court judges.
At district court judges.
Mhm.
And so the appeal, you ain't even tried the merits of the case. So you are appealing the injunction, and that can go a lot quicker than the merits of the case that we're used to, which takes years to get to the Supreme Court. So within a matter of weeks, a couple of weeks, it can get all the way to the Supreme Court. And when the Supreme Court issues that opinion, it's not really an opinion. They just basically say, we're going to dissolve the injunction. We're going to uphold the court. They don't give any reasoning behind it. You don't see what the court's thinking. It's not a decision on the merits, but a good example is, the court has allowed the administration to fire all of these employees with the Department of Education. They gave no reason behind dissolving the injunction that prevented that. The case goes all the way back to the district court for a trial on the merits. But in the meantime, the whole Department of Education is disrupted. People are leaving. You're moving things around, and it's going to make it very difficult, even if they lose, to try to put pieces back together again.
So what the Supreme Court is just doing is just dissolving the preliminary decisions that put the brakes on whatever was
That's right.
trying to be done. And the underlying facts have yet to be ruled upon.
That's correct. That's
and once
absolutely.
they are ruled upon, then you get back into the procedural 11th Circuit Supreme Court
That's right.
process.
That takes years. Absolutely. Yeah, it's really a topsy-turvy world. I saw the other day, I think it was between a president George W. Bush, Republican president, President Obama, 16 years, they used that emergency request to the Supreme Court just a handful of times, maybe 15, something like that, one a year, essentially. Trump used it 40 times, I think, in his first year. They've already used it over 20 times now.
Well, who calls that? DOJ?
The president. I mean,
Of course,
yeah,
DOJ at the direction
of the president.
of the president.
That's correct. And what you're seeing now is that the administration knows that they are likely to lose that injunction at the first level. They plan for this to go to the Supreme Court because they have such confidence that the Supreme Court is going to follow the partisan agenda and rule with them with no explanation. That's the important thing. All of these rulings we're seeing from the court, they don't explain
One-liners.
One-liners, two-liners. They don't explain them. They don't get into anything. It's not the major decisions which we see, the one that overturned Roe versus Wade, where you saw Justice Alito's reasoning or lack thereof on that. You don't see that in so much of what's happening in the court right now. It's a new world.
I just wonder if there are any guidelines that allow whoever decides, which apparently seems to be President of the United States, which cases get on that docket. There are no guidelines.
Oh, no.
It's just, let's put it on there.
It's an automatic filing. It's there. It's got to be ruled on. It's not a question, well, you've used up your quota or anything like that. There's no guidelines like that. It's not like the petition for certiorari, where it is basically asking the court to rule. You put it on the emergency docket, they're going to issue a ruling one way or another.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. We could talk some more about this. Thanks for coming up. I appreciate you taking the time.
It's always great to be with you.
It is with great sadness and regret that I must inform you that today's program is the last program of our Issues Birmingham. I want to thank you for the opportunity of allowing me to do that and to learn the things that I learned, and I hope that I was able to impart to you as my viewers. I want to especially thank Mr. J.C. Lowe and Eric Land and Karen Cole, who were responsible for me having this gig to begin with. I'm very grateful for them allowing me to do that. I want to thank my camera people, especially Holly Jones and Grant Bidman, and all of you that have taken the time to watch. For now, good day, good night, and good luck.